Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner on Twitter. Make sure you hit that follow button if you're seeing me there via StreamYard. If you're watching on StreamYard, I don't know if people do that, but it gets me to Twitter, so I appreciate that. Or if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe, leave a comment if you'd like to. Or if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, could certainly use a 5-star review, rating, subscribe. Anything of that would be really great. We're going to go through, this is a midweek episode, so it's going to be a little bit, I don't know, probably won't be quicker than most because everyone's in action except for the French League. We're going to go through the the Carabao Cup in England because we have some midweek cup matches because they couldn't play enough before the World Cup. And then we have domestic matches in Germany, Italy, and Spain. So going to go through, have a best bet for each of the leagues that we're discussing. And ultimately an ultimate best bet end of show, which hopefully we can get another win on the board from that. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag. It's my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juices offered in almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in this podcast description to fund your account and use promo code GW50. That's Griffin Warner 50, GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. Pretty good offer right there. Go take advantage of it and get some free money that we can hopefully win some extra money on top of that with. Without further ado, we'll start in England where the money is. It's a little bit different that it's not the Premier League, but we're in the League Cup season. I don't know, maybe it's not called Carabao anymore, but the EFL Cup. And there's going to be a bunch of teams in here that I don't know at all, so we'll go through them pretty quickly. But I'll at least say the lines out there so everyone's aware. Bristol City hosts Lincoln. That's a pretty good example. Bristol City, a 3-quarter goal favorite with all the juice. And I'm going to move on to Stevenage hosting Charlton. Haven't heard of Stevenage before, but they are a favorite, quarter goal favorite with all the juice in Charlton on the road. Charlton, I feel like had a pretty good run in this competition last season, but don't quote me on that. Next, we'll go Bournemouth hosting Everton, and this is actually 2 Premier League sides, so I feel pretty confident that I can at least tell you a little bit about both of these. Bournemouth at Pick'em right now, all the juice on Everton on the road, and I think that just speaks to the financial capabilities of these two teams, and likely that Everton are a deeper squad. Until we see lineups for cup games, it's really hard to know who's going for what. With only a few matches to go before the World Cup, 2 of those to be exact, I would imagine we'll see teams putting their best out there, unless they're so talented that they have a good second team. Looking at the top 6 clubs in England. Bournemouth don't really have that much depth. They certainly need to be worried about staying in the league, though Everton are kind of in the same situation. They've flexed their financial muscle a little bit this year and building up a midfield that looked really old and really slow. I'm interested in Bournemouth getting a quarter of a goal if it jumps up to there. There's a fair amount of movement in cup matches, especially when lineups come out. So about an hour before these games start, that's when everything's going to start jumping around. If you feel like you got a good read on who's going to be playing and who's going to be there, and it might be the best number you get, I wouldn't hesitate to grab it. Nothing for me on this one specifically until we get a quarter of a goal on Bournemouth. And they just haven't really had a great run of form lately. So, but I still think they're a good defense. They're going to play a counterattacking style. It's how they've wanted to play. Everton, if they aren't playing their best, and even if they are, I feel like they are a wounded dog on the road. So I like a home dog here if I can find it. I guess I should use a different descriptor or different animal. Everton just a wounded animal because they can't score goals, and that's a really big deal if you are favored and have to win a match in regulation. And I guess another thing to say is these cup matches all should be decided at the 90-minute plus stoppage time whistle. If there's extra time or something like that, you will have won your dog bet if they make it to extra time. So it's another really nice thing about soccer is you don't really have to deal with overtime, which is delightful. Leicester then hosts Newport County. Currently, Leicester a 2.25 goal favorite, monster number. They certainly can score a lot of goals, and I don't know what division Newport County is in. But that's a really big number for Leicester, who still are pretty worried about where they sit in the table. MK Dons, a 3/4 goal favorite to Morecambe, maybe if that's how you pronounce it. Brentford then hosts Gillingham, not Gillingham Island, Gillingham. Brentford is a 2.25 goal favorite, which is monstrous for them. But another situation where I just don't really know how to grade Brentford versus a team named Gillingham, wherever they're from in England. Burnley then hosts Crawley Town, recently demoted. Burnley got relegated last season. They're a 2-goal favorite to Crawley Town. And most of these teams that go down a level, they're still pretty strong that next year. And a lot of them come right back and kind of play the yo-yo game. Fulham, I think, is a perfect example recently of that. Not sure that I got much on Crawley Town, though. Moving to Wednesday with West Ham hosting Blackburn. West Ham, a 1.5-goal favorite. They haven't had a great start to the English Premier League season. They've also been playing a ton of matches because they were in Conference League, but were nearly perfect in that competition. And part of me thinks that half of them is like, we don't want to tempt fate by playing 2 matches with our full squads every week until the World Cup. But it's gone fairly well for West Ham so far internationally. I feel like and most of these clubs do take these cups seriously. It's a good place to get young people some minutes, which is important moving forward. But ultimately, it's for the best players on the team. So I'm not really sure what West Ham's going to throw out there, and I think I could say the same thing for all these matchups that are happening. Southampton hosting Sheffield Wednesday. Southampton, a 1-goal favorite at home with all the juice. It's usually the big clubs, if they're playing, they're good teams. They're going to climb quite a bit. But Southampton is a big favorite. It's not something I enjoy. Arsenal then hosts Brighton. Currently, Arsenal a 3/4 goal favorite, and they're off to an awesome start in the season. Everything's going well for them in the league, including their schedule, dodging Man City because they had to make up a game themselves due to the Queen's shocking death at 96 years old. That really even added an extra layer of safety to Arsenal and probably will give them a lead heading into the World Cup break. But Brighton, on the other hand, they've been, I was not expecting Brighton to be able to maintain their success. They started off the year really well. Then the manager got hired away to Chelsea. Graham Potter left and Roberto De Zerbi came in, and he's still playing. His lineup against Wolves was very attacking. He had wings play, or even forwards potentially playing wing back, and it didn't really go great for one of the goals. Bad mistake by Brighton in their match with Wolves this weekend. I do worry about them defensively, but ultimately their team, if you take into consideration what Brighton were at the start of this year, then getting 3/4 of a goal from Arsenal is a lot. I don't know if this one hits +1. If it does, I'm a lot more interested in Brighton. Certainly need to see who the lineups and who's being played in these matchups. Arsenal's been playing 2 games a week all season. Brighton have not. That's a big advantage, and they have a deep enough squad to handle that. And I would almost think that Arsenal rotating might even be okay because the drop off in their first team and their second team is not as heavy as just seeing Brighton with heavy legs out there. But ultimately, I lean to Brighton getting 3/4 of a goal. I feel like there's money to be made betting against Arsenal. I don't know if it's necessarily here, but I'm very interested in seeing these lineups on Wednesday. Next, we have Wolves hosting Leeds. Wolves, a 1/4 goal favorite. And I don't really understand why Wolves are a favorite to anybody at this point. Their goal scoring is non-existent. Julian Lopetegui is not going to come in and change their offense. He's a goalkeeper, and I think he's going to solidify them defensively, which I guess is something you need at the bottom of the English Premier League table. But I'm not really sure what they're going for, what they're playing for. They do have a lot deeper of a squad, but a lot of their players are ineligible due to suspension or injury. Leeds, on the other hand, I'm curious what Jesse Marsch is going to put out there. It hasn't really been a great run for him most recently, but I think Leeds are more dynamic. They certainly are going to take more chances than Wolves will, but I feel like the Wolves defense is not good enough right now, whereas Leeds are going to put them under a lot of pressure. So I like getting a 1/4 on the road at Wolves currently because I'm not sure that the Wolves crowd is even that into it at this point. Nottingham Forest then hosts Tottenham, and somehow Nottingham Forest are a 1/2 goal underdog at home. Very much below the 1.25 I think they closed at against Tottenham earlier this season. Similar type of environment, same place. I guess I think it was an afternoon game rather than a night game, but certainly not midweek. Tottenham certainly are dealing with a lot more injuries right now, which is not great for them, but I wouldn't think that this would downgrade this number below a full goal of insurance. So there's not a lot for me to do here with Nottingham Forest, I got to say. I do worry that they're going to bench a lot of their players and kind of let this one go because they have so much riding on staying in the league this season. But they did a lot of buying in the offseason transfer window, so they might be able to withstand a second match in a week. I'm not going to trust them to perform well in it, and the number is way too low for me. but there's a lot of respect in the marketplace. And I don't know if that's just anti-Tottenham, because that feels a little bit much. Newcastle then hosts Crystal Palace. Newcastle, a 3/4 goal favorite right now. Juice is about split each way. A little bigger than I was expecting, but I think it's probably deserved because Newcastle has been playing so well and Crystal Palace on the road. Really, really Crystal Palace's offense anywhere is questionable, but especially on the road. In a cup match, we'll see what the lineups look like. Newcastle certainly are deeper because they've got an injection of money from the Saudi Arabian fund. Crystal Palace don't have that money at their disposal from what I've seen. But they are, these are two good Premier League teams, and one has to win by multiple goals to take a full unit. If it goes to extra time, you win a bet on Crystal Palace, so that's kind of nice. But I just don't know if I'm ready to back Crystal Palace unless I'm getting a full goal of insurance for them on the road against a team that I think is competent. Newcastle's goals aren't great, but I do think that they're probably going to keep a clean sheet, and that's asking a lot for Crystal Palace to do the same thing. Manchester City then hosts Chelsea. Man City, a 1-goal favorite with all the juice, and that's a big, huge number. I mean, as this one climbs above 1, it's going to be really hard for me to resist, I think. Chelsea are not great offensively, but Graham Potter I think he's had pretty good success, against Man City earlier in his career with Brighton, a much lower budget, lower, I guess, ceiling team, possessing the ball and trying to keep it from Man City. I imagine they use a pretty similar game plan here. Early goals, of course, change games, especially if Man City are the one that are scoring. But I really like Chelsea getting a full goal of insurance, even on the road at the Etihad. I feel like Man City are great, but still big questions about Erling Haaland and his health. And ultimately, I feel like Chelsea are in a position where that full goal of insurance looks like a big, big number for me, especially with a lot of minds, hearts, eyes focused upon the World Cup coming up very soon for both of these clubs. Liverpool then hosts Derby County. Currently, Liverpool, a 2.5-goal favorite. All the juice on Derby on the road. I'm still very much looking forward to fading Liverpool as much as possible this season. I don't think that Derby are the team to do it with. And last but not least, we have Manchester United hosting Aston Villa. Currently, Manchester United, a 3/4 goal favorite right now with all the juice. So this is probably a -1 even right now, just looking a little bit weird where I'm staring. Aston Villa with Unai Emery, I mean, he's had really good success parking the bus against Manchester United in the past. United have been playing really well, Manchester United, that is. And it does make me a little bit concerned to fade them at home, where they should have a pretty good boost from a crowd that's actually into them now, instead of whistling or wearing opposing colors to try to get the owners out and restored back to some sort of club in the 1700s or whatever. I do like Aston Villa at that +1 number, but I think that's the minimum that I would need to consider them going forward. So best bets for the English League Cup. I do like Bournemouth. They're not yet at a 1/4 goal underdog. Skip a lot of these because it's not even worth going through. Brighton, I like getting 3/4 at Arsenal. I really like Leeds getting a 1/4 of a goal at Wolves. The hard part is to advocate anything without seeing lineups here, but I feel like a lot of these teams are going to be taking it just as seriously. If one isn't and the other one is, unfortunately, though, you're going to see a pretty big move in a line. Chelsea +1 feels really, really not safe, because nothing is when you fade Manchester City, especially in that building. But I do like Chelsea getting that +1. That's probably the most reasonable pick to make. I mean, Leeds +1/4 is very interesting, but I'll go Chelsea +1, which might even get to +1.25 by the time that kicks off on Wednesday, I believe. Okay, now we're going to go to Spanish La Liga. We're missing, I think, a couple lines based on Real Madrid and Rayo Vallecano playing today. But hopefully no one's going to cry about us not having those available. Elche hosts Girona, and that is a Tuesday match. Elche, a 1/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice, but that's still a very disrespectful number, but it's deserved because Elche haven't won a match this year. Girona have looked better lately. Over-under's 2.5. I don't expect a lot of goals in this matchup, though there's been a lot of goals in matches that really haven't deserved them lately. I don't know if defenses are tired. They've been playing so many matches, which doesn't seem like that big of an overload for these two teams because they play once a week. But Girona as a road favorite seems like a bit of an overreaction to how well they've been playing in their form table as of late. Though credit them that, because that certainly adds a lot more confidence in whatever the heck Elche are doing at the bottom of the La Liga table. I lean to Elche as a quarter goal underdog at home because I thought this would be pick'em, but I'm not sure I love it that much. Probably lean stronger to under 2.5. Athletic Club then hosts Valladolid. Currently, Athletic Club a 1.25 goal favorite. And they started the year off really well, but it's not continued. I'm not really a believer in the Athletic Club offense. It looks really good when Iñaki Williams is finishing, or the Williams brothers in general, but that hasn't been happening a lot. And Valladolid have had a couple not so great performances, but ultimately they've been a great home team. And I trust them to go on the road and play Athletic Club really tough. Getting a goal and a quarter also means they can lose by a single goal and you win half a wager. That's exactly where I want to be with this Valladolid Pucela squad. And I really like that team. And I feel like Athletic Club's offense is a good thing to fade, even at home in San Mamés. Moving to the nightcap on Tuesday, that's Osasuna hosting Barcelona. Currently, Osasuna a 1-goal underdog at home. All the juice in Barcelona, and this was 1.25 before. I imagine it climbs back up there. Osasuna have been playing great. They have a really good home crowd. No reason but to be excited about this team right now. And I feel like that's a really good sign for a Barcelona side that's a little bit distracted. And the game basically shut off once they took PK out in his last home match before retirement at Camp Nou, at the Spotify Camp Nou, excuse me. Give me 5 stars in there if you're listening there. And I feel like Osasuna they're a little bit different this year. They've always been a pretty solid defense that didn't have any sort of attacking talent. They added some of that through basically getting a lot of cast-offs from Villarreal in the offseason, which hasn't looked great for Villarreal, especially because they're looking up at Osasuna in the table despite spending a lot more money. I don't know. I mean, I have no interest in backing this at +1 right now. I think I might if lineups dictate that sort of thing. But this line should climb. And I don't know that I trust Barcelona's defense against anything in this world. Especially not the way Chimiavila is playing. That guy's the man. I might need to get a jersey, a camiseta, if you will. And now we'll move to Wednesday. Sevilla hosting Real Sociedad. Sevilla a pick'em with all the juice, which I don't know how Sevilla could be favored to anybody at this point. And it looks like it's trending towards -1/4. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for that one. The Real Sociedad offense has been really bad ever since because they've lost a lot of their players and have been playing Sorloth and Carlos Fernandez together, who are two good individuals but haven't linked up at all. I hope that Emmanuel Alguacil will decide not to use those players together, but haven't seen it yet. We'll definitely be looking very hard at that lineup on Wednesday afternoon to really hope that change will be made. It's not been working, but Real Sociedad have talent other places. Sevilla honestly was the Nemanja Gudeli show against Real Betis in the El Gran Derby this past weekend. Red cards all over the place. I mean, of course, that's totally expected from those two clubs in Sevilla. But it was awesome spectacle. If you didn't watch it, I suggest going back. And I don't think I told you the results, so go watch. But Sevilla, I don't trust to win any matches. So if they're a favorite, I'm going to go the other way against anybody really with a pulse. And Sociedad certainly have one, as they won their Europa League group, beat Manchester United on the road, whether that was deserved or not. They did it. And I feel like Sevilla is not going to put up that much of a fight, especially off a emotional, to say the least, derby match. Next, we have Almeria hosting Getafe. Currently, Almeria a quarter goal favorite. And that says a little bit considering Almeria just coming up. They worked really hard defending against Barcelona, and honestly, credit them for sticking around, because when it got 2-0 with like 30 minutes left, I thought that they were going to just buckle in and take on 4-0 or 5-0 or worse. But they held on, covered a 2.5 goal spread. It was very nerve-wracking, but I'm glad they did it. And I'm going to try not to back too many of those, but ultimately it's hard to argue with a profitable wager that came back to you. And Getafe, on the other hand, they're going to play really aggressively defensively. And that, unfortunately, on the road leads you to a lot more potential red card issues. And they are one of the biggest offenders in that area until we get to Atletico, basically. But Getafe are not a good team, and I feel like that impacts them even more. I do like them getting a quarter of a goal at Almeria. Under 2.25. It's very juiced right now, but I lean that way as well. I don't think there's a lot of offense in this matchup. I think they're both going to cancel each other out quite a bit, and goalless is a real possibility, which makes under look really nice, but also Hitafe getting a quarter look a little bit better too. Espanyol then hosts Villarreal, and currently Espanyol a quarter goal home dog at. And I can't explain it. Villarreal have looked awful for a month now. Unai Emery either left for the money or both because the team was going nowhere. Their offense is a joke without Gerard Moreno. He's potentially going to return, but getting shut out at home and losing 2-0 to Mallorca on the weekend was not a great start to a quick turnaround. So they've been playing the Europa Conference League all season. I don't see any goals in them. They have big problems. I don't know what Quique Setien and how he had any sort of managerial respect before that got him a Barcelona job, but he was an absolute joke at Barcelona. And it's looked no different to me for Villarreal so far. Espanyol getting a quarter at home. They are not the perfect team by any means, but took a really tough red card at Atletico Madrid and still took a 1-0 lead and arguably deserved to win that match, if not for some Joao Felix, just awesome left-hand boomerang shot from just inside the box. But I do like under 2.5 as well. I don't think there's going to be a lot of goals in this one, but I think in those kind of where I'm leaning to under and also to an underdog, I do like playing home dogs. So I feel like there's a lot more that can happen positively for that home dog than there is for that under. Mallorca then hosts Atletico Madrid. Currently at Mallorca, a quarter goal underdog at home. All the juice on Atletico Madrid, and I imagine that will climb to a half. But it certainly doesn't deserve to climb to a half based on how Atleti have played. Crashed out of Champions League. Their fans didn't show up for the first half of the match. Just it's amazing me trying to get rid of Simeone, but like he got them there, and they're going to go back to a really bad place if they get rid of him, I think. But certainly they're not getting the results they're expecting, and that's probably the what you do to yourself when you raise expectations so much. But Mallorca are going to play a really rugged defensive lineup, and they're going to kind of beat the crap out of Atleti, and Atleti aren't going to like it. They are big time red card risk every time they played, but especially on the road here when they're getting messed with. And every player that goes out, I feel like that makes the game even slower and less goals are likely. I do like Mallorca getting that quarter at home. I do want to see that climb to a half a goal underdog so that when they draw at home, we can make sure we still win a full unit. But I'm also not really shying away from that quarter goal either at home. And last that I have for active lines at the moment, Valencia hosting Betis, and this is a Thursday match. Valencia, a quarter goal favorite right now. And that's pretty high to me. I mean, Betis are missing both Nabil Fekir and also Borja Iglesias from attacking or fouls, one with the ball in Fekir's situation. Borja just stepped on a guy's like calf. That happens, and that's a red card in La Liga, especially. So they're gonna have to balance. I mean, it should mean Willian Jose comes in at striker, and Fekir really has been on and off the field a lot this season. So I don't know that he's as big of a loss. We'll see if maybe Joaquin is available. He was injured and he's like 41, so I guess that's probably not someone you should rely upon. But Sergio Canales should be there unless he's getting ridiculous double yellows at the end of a match because he just wants to yell at a ref. I do like Betis getting a quarter there. I feel like they missed a big opportunity at home and are going to be pretty upset off of the Grand Derby, but also El Gran Derby was big for them and losing. I mean, they worked really hard and were playing with 9 men for a lot of that match. And ultimately, I think I like that quarter, but I do want to see what that lineup looks like. They've been playing 2 matches a week, so they've been a little bit prepared for it, but it was all hands on deck on Sunday night, and it's a pretty quick turnaround to Thursday. Now, other matches with lines, there's Celta de Vigo were getting a quarter, and that was on the road at Rayo, I believe. Yes, it was. I leaned that way. Initially, the lines come down because they played today. And then Real Madrid were a 1 and let's see. Real Madrid were a 2-goal and 2.25 goal favorite at home versus Cadiz. And Cadiz, they've had some good upturns in results. I do not buy it. I am looking to bet against them as much as I can. I don't know if they'll be a favorite because they really haven't been this season from what I remember. But I would not fall in love with those results, and I would not fade Real Madrid if it was if you guys are looking for advice on money management. I wouldn't do that. So Before I leave Spanish La Liga behind, I lean to Elche, but that's probably not good enough. I love Valladolid getting more than a goal. I like Osasuna getting a goal from Barcelona. I'm waiting for Sociedad to get to a quarter. I like Getafe a little bit, but under probably a little bit more. I like Espanyol a lot, getting a quarter at home from Villarreal. Mallorca getting a quarter at home from Atletico Madrid. And I like Betis on the road, but I want to see what that lineup looks like. So my best bet for La Liga, I will give out Real Valladolid plus 1.25 on the road Athletic Club. I think they're going to hang around, and I think it's going to be really hard for Athletic Club to score twice. Never mind win by 2 goals. So that'll be my best bet to go along with Chelsea in the Premier League FA Cup, not FA Cup, in the EFL Cup. That's what we're going for. Now moving to Italy, we have Napoli hosting Empoli. This is a Tuesday match. Napoli a 2-goal favorite, and Empoli played really well in their last matchup, but I think it's going to be really hard for them to put it together back to back. Napoli are so strong, so talented, so deep. I mean, dealing with missing Kvaratskhelia is a big problem, but don't think that Empoli are going to really do enough to threaten them. And this is going to be a lot of shots on target. Napoli might not be able to get a really high efficiency rate, and it might be hard for them to win by 3 goals or more. I just don't think there's enough offense in the Empoli camp for me to get involved. Spezia then hosts Udinese. Currently, Spezia a 0.5-goal underdog at home. Udinese finally didn't look so good in their last match, but ultimately Spezia have looked bad all season, and I don't really want to get in any sort of way of Udinese at the moment. I like what they're doing, and I don't like Spezia at all, so I'm staying away from that. They need to prove something to me before I get involved. Cremonese then hosts AC Milan, coming off a crazy match that I still don't understand how you can have an offensive, like attacking encroachment and then get to retake a penalty that was missed. That seems absolutely ridiculous, but soccer rules are not very intelligent. So Cremonese, a 1-goal underdog at home to AC Milan. Milan are really good at crushing teams in this league, and that's how they won the Scudetto last year. They haven't looked great in Europe ultimately, but Cremonese are not a team that's anywhere close to Europe. So I don't even know if that +1 is enough for me. Moving to Wednesday, of Lecce hosting Atalanta. Lecce, a 3/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice. So this one might be coming down. I think I need a full goal of insurance on Lecce. I just don't believe enough in their offense at this point. Atalanta have looked great not playing in Europe. They're back to being kind of the under expected but big time overachievers under Gasparini. It might just be the perfect situation for him, is not to be worrying about Champions League football and instead being a little bit under the radar. That 3/4 of a goal, I don't know where it's going to go. It's very juiced on Lecce right now, but I imagine Atalanta money might even balance that out. Maybe one is a possibility for Wednesday. Sassuolo then hosts Roma. Currently, Sassuolo a 0.5-goal underdog at home with all the juice. So it's expensive if you want to back them. I don't know that I want to at all. Roma certainly don't look perfect to me at this point. Had a big derby match, Derby della Capitale, I believe. Their match with Lazio this past weekend. So it's potentially a flat spot to catch Roma going on the road as a favorite, and you win on a draw. You win a full bet on Sassuolo. I don't think Sassuolo they're just always a selling club, and they have never had a defense, and they sell off their attacking talent. I do love the Loriente signing from Lorient in France, but ultimately I don't like them enough at this point. Fiorentina then hosts Salernitana. Fiorentina, a 1-goal favorite, and that does make me interested because Fiorentina have not been a very good offense all season. They've had trouble scoring goals, and they have to win by 2 goals here and at least score 2 to beat me. Salernitana certainly let one go this past weekend, and it should have won against Cremonese. Kind of feel like they got screwed. That should make them pretty motivated to go on the road, though they also see this as a point being a huge success. I think Salernitana hangs around, and that +1 looks very good to me. I guess also like under 2 3/4, because that seems really high for a Fiorentina offense that really struggles. Inter Milan then hosts Bologna. Inter Milan, a 1.5-goal favorite. Bologna just haven't really looked great. They switched manager. It's been a little bit better, but without Arnautovic, they're just not really the same team. Inter, I've kind of learned my lesson fading them. I got to have a really good reason to do it. I'm not sure that Bologna are going to give me any sort of reasons like that. And with a 1.5-goal underdog, you're just really hoping they hang as long as possible and concede in the 87th minute, and then it's still scary. So I don't think Bologna will be on my card. Torino then hosts Sampdoria. Torino, a 3/4 goal favorite. with almost all the juice right now. Maybe this climbs to 1. Torino's been getting a lot of respect from the marketplace recently. Sampdoria, I just don't really like, and they need to get young fast because they feel like they're aging in all these positions. They're trying to get younger, and it's not really working. It's hard to do that overnight for sure. But maybe at +1, I'm a little bit more interested, but we're not there yet. Moving to Thursday, Verona hosts Juventus. Currently, Verona a 3-quarter goal underdog at home, which surprised me, way bigger than I was expecting. Juve have not been getting much respect. They did see a fair amount of bets, it looked like, on Sunday before they played Inter. But ultimately, they're a team that's been dealing with a ton of injuries, and they're not anywhere near their expectations. That kind of hurts. Might even be better for them to go on the road because they don't have whistles in that situation, or they're getting whistles from their opponents, which is fans, which is expected. Verona have played better than the results they've deserved this year, but the market hasn't liked them. The results haven't followed, or they have followed the market, and it's not been going in Verona's favor. I do like them at home, but I think I need that full goal of insurance from Juventus to play. And last but not least, Lazio, a 1-goal favorite to Monza. Monza's been a darling of the marketplace for a lot of the season. Lazio are dealing with a lot of injuries. They should have a very well-rested Sergei Milinkovic-Savic, considering he was suspended for the derby this weekend. But I don't think Ciro Immobile is around, and that's really affected their offense quite a bit. This line requires them win by multiple goals, so I don't hate a Monza lean if you have one, though that +1 is very expensive. Best bets for Italy for this midweek: not Empoli, not Spezia, not Cremonese, so that skips Tuesday. On Wednesday, I'm interested in Lecce, but I think I want a full +1, which I don't think I'll get. Sassuolo are not good enough. I do like Salernitana +1, also under 2 3/4. I think that really depends. If you believe in Salernitana to hang around, do you think they're going to do that by scoring? I feel like that 2 3/4 is a little bit more attractive than +1. But Bologna, I'm not interested in. Sampdoria, I don't think I want till +1. I don't know I'll get that. Same with Verona and Monza. Are expensive, and really you got to believe in a team that's going to face a really tough offense in their home building off of a derby match. So things pushing in alternate directions there for sure. I'm going to go with my best bet as the Fiorentina Salernitana under 2 3/4 for Italy. Last but not least, I'm going to go through the German Bundesliga, which they rarely play midweek matches, but here we are. I'm not really sure why they have to do that. Probably because they want a long international or long Christmas break, which seems really silly, but whatever. We're not going to debate that now. Wolfsburg hosting Borussia Dortmund. Currently, Wolfsburg a 1/4 goal underdog at home. Borussia Dortmund, they're as Jekyll Hyde as it gets, but that's what happens when we have a lot of young players. Only seeing Wolfsburg a 1/4 goal underdog at home, though, is a very small number, which tells me the market really likes Wolfsburg, or that this one is just too short for me to play. I lean that way. I was hoping for more, a lot more, honestly. I think I was more projecting this towards a half or even 3/4 of a goal underdogs at home. But I don't like, or excuse me, I don't hate the idea of fading Borussia Dortmund because I just don't think they're that great. And they're treated like they are all the time. And Wolfsburg got pretty disrespected from their line at Mainz on this weekend and won 3-0. Certainly weren't in control of a match to win 3-0, but did what they needed to. Took their chances and were very efficient with their shots. Mainz are probably super pissed about it, but still, I think Wolfsburg are starting to look like Niko Kovac has found a place where he can hang around, and lower expectations might be good for him. Stuttgart then hosts Hertha Berlin. Currently, Stuttgart a 1/2 goal favorite, and I think that's too big. Their defense has been really poor under the new manager. I think because he was trying so hard to get offense, which he finally did, but a lot of that was based on the schedule. Ultimately playing a cup match against like a 3rd-tier team, and then facing a 3rd-tier team that's in the Bundesliga and VfL Bochum. I'm not a believer. They have to win the game to take, and a draw will win a full bet for me on Hertha. So I'm interested in that, taking that 1/2 goal. Bayern Munchen then hosts Werder Bremen. Currently Bayern a 2 1/4 goal favorite, and that's huge. Werder Bremen have been really, really strong this year. They look like they're European contender, potentially, not even just staying in the league as a newly promoted side. It's amazing considering what they were just 2 seasons ago, looking like the worst team in the world and then going down because of it. But I don't think I want to get in the way of Bayern because I just don't. I mean, they have a decent back line of defenders, and Niklas Stark, who came over from Hertha Berlin. Not that that's a great thing, but he's got plenty of Bundesliga service under his belt. Velkovic, who was there for a while, and Max Friedel, I think were both Werder Bremen like forevers, but lifers, if you will. But I also like Dorsch up top, and Füllkrug has been so good that he might even get included in the German national team, which Hansi Flick has been like refusing to do so far. But I mean, I'm into Werder Bremen getting more than 2 goals. It's hard for me not to be. But I'm really hoping I don't play against Bayern with an over-under of 4. So there's expecting a lot of goals, and I feel like most of them will be Bayern's. Bochum then hosts Borussia Mönchengladbach. Currently, Bochum a half a goal underdog at home, and Borussia Mönchengladbach, they've really been if Borussia Dortmund are Jekyll and Hyde, then Borussia Mönchengladbach are the same. Maybe it's a Borussia thing, but they are just not very good from time to time. Some days they look great and have a lot of attacking talent. Marcus Thuram is great, awesome. Alison Playa was a great. He's finding him in all the great spots this past weekend. Can you expect that twice in a row, especially against a really tough Bochum crowd? Maybe, I'm not sure. The thing is the luster has worn off Bochum. They were a great bet last year, and we're covering so many of these spreads because they got no respect. They got no respect again this year, but they're also not covering spreads. They're really struggling. If Schalke wasn't holding them up, they'd be bottom of the league, I think, by far. So that makes it hard because I do like the half of a goal at home. The crowd will be supposedly pretty good. It's been a little bit hit or miss this season, though. When I tried to get a ticket for the Cologne match, it was impossible, literally impossible. So that was very disappointing. But then they played Eintracht Frankfurt the next week, and like there were a bunch of empty seats as people were adding me on Twitter. Feel free if you disagree with any of my write-ups. I do like the comparisons, but or just any disagreements. It's fine. I guess gun to my head, I'm leaning Bochum, but fortunately in the state of Texas, no one around me has one. JK. Cologne then hosts Bayer Leverkusen. Currently Cologne a quarter goal underdog. And this is on Wednesday, early match. Cologne have had trouble balancing European commitments, and they swelled to a 1-goal underdog on the road at Freiburg this weekend. And we're hanging in there and deserved a lot better, but ultimately couldn't score. And that's, I think, the big concern for them this year. I don't think that's solved. I do think that Leverkusen going on the road, giving them a quarter of a goal, is more than they deserve. Leverkusen have been so bad this season. I'm not overreacting to one big win against Union Berlin, though certainly credit them for that. Cologne, it's really hard to know about energy levels, and in front of their crowd, it should be a lot better instead of going on the road to Freiburg in a tough environment. But I'm definitely worried about the Cologne legs. They did take off Stefan Tigges despite trailing 1-0 at the 60-minute mark. And I feel like that's just a limit for how much he plays. So probably need to find some ability in those first 60 minutes, or even, unfortunately, a first half bet wouldn't give you any sort of candy on Cologne ultimately. So I do like the quarter. I lean to the home dog here. I think the crowd's going to have to be into it, and they're going to have to do a lot. But this is a little bit of a derby. They called it one in the post-game press conference, and Ilya Skiri was like, he didn't really react or go for it. But I do like Cologne as a home dog because I just really don't like Leverkusen. I don't think that one good performance is enough to delete the rest of it all. And I'm not sure Xabi Alonso really knows what he's doing. It's a big jump from a Real Sociedad youth team to the German top division, the Oberhausen. Schalke then hosts Mainz. They're learning about that Oberhausen as well, though they were the worst team in like Bundesliga history 2 seasons ago. And I think their winless streak has set more records than they care to at this point. Schalke currently a quarter goal underdog at home. All the juice is on Mainz on the road. Likely climb into a half of a goal favorite, and I'm not interested in Scheisse Nolfia. They are really struggling. Don't really see a way out of it. Thomas Rice is hopefully helping defense, but I'm still waiting to see kind of what that looks like. And if they have no offense, that makes it so their defense will just deteriorate because you can't play defense the whole time. And when you have to press forward to try to score, it doesn't work either. Under 2 3/4, I guess, is the thing I'd like most in this one, but I don't know how much interest I have in playing unders with Schalke at this point. RB Leipzig then hosts Freiburg. Currently, Leipzig a 3/4 goal favorite, which is a pretty big number for a home team, a good one at that. But laying to the second place team in the Bundesliga. Freiburg got to rest midweek because they'd already clinched their Europa League group. Only Christian Gunter, who's their captain, played I think both of those matches. And he probably plays here because he's an Iron Man. Though I do wonder a little bit if they might rest him as he wants to get in that World Cup team for Germany. But Leipzig, they're a great home team. You got to give them credit for that. They've been really hot lately and beating Real Madrid there, and doing a lot more than that as well. Freiburg are a great team. They're really deep. They're great. Their defense has been so good for a couple seasons. That's why they've been so strong. I feel like if this hits +1, it's gonna be really hard for me to avoid. But the current 3/4, even though it feels high, I might be able to avoid it. Eintracht Frankfurt then hosts Hoffenheim. Currently, Frankfurt a half a goal favorite right now, and TSG Hoffenheim are a good offense. They have really good crossers of the ball, and Robert Skov and Angelino. They aren't really finishing right now, though. Jorginho Ruta has not been great. Kramaric has barely been playing, came off the bench, and I don't really know why he isn't playing more. Would hope that he starts because he's clearly better than the other options they have there. I think clearly their manager knows something more than I do. But seeing Frankfurt giving a half of a goal here to Hoffenheim at home is a lot. Short week and in front of a big crowd does matter, but Hoffenheim, I feel like, are getting too much, and maybe the luster is worn off enough to make them a potential bet for me here. Last but not least, Union Berlin, a 1-goal favorite to Augsburg, and there was not a lot that came out of Union. Unfortunately, I didn't recognize that they were missing their goalkeeper until it was too late, and it became very apparent. He got beat on a corner, which wasn't really his fault, but then made a huge mistake. And that reminds me, he's on loan from Leverkusen and basically looked like he was still playing for Leverkusen this weekend. If Ronaldo is not back, it's going to be really hard for me to avoid going on Augsburg. I feel like I can't play an under in this one because I literally trust that goalie for nothing. Like, they should play a youth team player over that guy of Grill or whatever his name is. He clearly has some respect to even get that loan move to Union, but from every moment that I've seen him play, like filling in for Lucas Radetzky last year for Leverkusen, he was so bad that I can't even think about it. So Augsburg with a full goal of insurance against a goalkeeper that's probably going to surrender a goal from a mistake of his. It also really seemed to hurt and kind of break Union Berlin. They were down 1-0, so it wasn't the ultimate deciding factor, but I think they could have gotten back into that match once they fell behind by 2 and realized that they have a useless body wearing a different colored jersey in their net. That's a pretty hard thing to handle. So I lean to Augsburg in that +1, but I wonder if they're going to try to rush back Bruno to play since he'll be able to rest for the World Cup, because he won't be at the World Cup after that anyway, I don't think. To recap for the German Bundesliga, then we'll go through best bets for each of the leagues or cups that we're talking about in this round, and then an ultimate best bet. I do like Wolfsburg getting a 1/4, but it's a little short to me. I like Hertha Berlin getting a half from Stuttgart, though. They've been playing really well and just don't get results, and that does kind of hurt. Werder Bremen like getting to a 1/4, but I'm going to try my best to avoid. Bochum getting a half at home. I just feel like they haven't done enough for me to trust them this year. Köln, I like getting a 1/4 from Leverkusen. I do like I don't even know if I like anything. I guess I like under 2 3/4 in the Schalke match. Freiburg, I'm hoping they get to +1, but they're not there yet. Hoffenheim, I think, is too big at +0.5, but they're going to be fighting a Frankfurt crowd on some pretty tired legs, and that's a little bit scary having to play on the road after only a couple of days rest. And last but not least, I do like Augsburg getting +1 from a goalie that I can't trust. But if Union do have a better keeper in, then it might, or just a different one in general, maybe even an unknown one might be better than, and certainly will be better than what they started this past weekend. So for my best bet for the Bundesliga, I'm going to go with Hertha Berlin getting a half of a goal from a pretty quiet Stuttgart offense. So you can follow me on Twitter, @thereal_G Warner. Thanks if you're already there following along, or if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give me some 5-star reviews. That would be really helpful, or subscribe. It's good to have those number up. Same sort of thing on YouTube as well, because I think once I get more subscribers on YouTube, and then I'll start doing some more, maybe editing some stuff, adding some visuals besides what you see right below me. But that might only be on Twitter right now. So wherever you're watching, if you got some other places you want me to be, let me know. It probably is not too hard to then split this and put it somewhere else. But for what everyone's been waiting for, I'll summarize my best bets by each of the leagues. So from the EFL Cup, I'm going Chelsea +1 at Manchester City. I do think that might hit 1.25 by the time we kick off. In the Spanish La Liga, I went with Real Valladolid +1.25. You sounded like Mackenzie Rivers now. But yeah, Valladolid +1.25. Jeez. On the road, Athletic Club. In Serie A, I'll go with Salernitana under 2.75 is the bet there. And then lastly, in the German Bundesliga, it is just said that it's Hertha Berlin. There we go, getting a half of a goal from VfB Stuttgart. And so without further ado, my best bet for this week, I guess midweek edition of the Betting the Pitch podcast, I'm gonna go with Real Valladolid +1.25 at Athletic Club. I feel like Athletic Club, they shook us off the scent for a little while and made us think that they could score goals again, but they're back into not finishing, and they have to win by multiple goals. And I think it's going to be really hard for them to get one, and I think even harder to get two. So that'll wrap this episode up. Thanks all of you for tuning in, whether you're watching Monday Night Football on mute because you wanted to hear all this gold coming out of here, or maybe listen to it in the morning on the commute. I appreciate you wherever you are. It means a lot. And I look forward to getting another episode out there soon. Also, college basketball stuff with AJ Hoffman's coming back. Should be first episode out on Friday, I believe, covering the weekend. And then you'll see my soccer stuff will be coming. And anything else you got somewhere you want me to be, maybe doing some World Cup prep on here / we will be doing that. So get your questions in. We'll love to do some futures out there. So got a couple that I'm eyeing for group winners and other things as well. Also saw a top goal scorer for Japan. That's very interesting. Dachi Kamada. Hello. But anyway, hit me up if you got anything. The real_G Warner on Twitter. Follow, like, subscribe, do those beautiful things, and we'll talk to you later in the week.